Welcome to Caldwell Courtside. I'm your host, Devin Long, and today I'm joined by track athletes Charlotte and Jonah. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Kind of thanks for having me.
All right, and then can you just both introduce yourselves and then talk about what events you do for track and field and what made you start becoming a track and field athlete?
Mm-hmm. You want to go first? Or go first?
You got it.
Well, I got recruited to the college my senior year, but it was COVID year. So I did not plan on coming here to run track at all. But as I've been here, I've grown to love the sport, and I really love track now, but it's been a journey. Can you ask the question again? I forgot other parts.
And then can you talk about your events?
Events, yeah.
Yes, and then what
Yeah, so I do the sprints. I'm a short sprinter, the 100, the 200. I do sprint the 4 and the 4x4 if needs be. And then I also long jump.
Nice.
Exactly the same as Charlotte. I'm a short sprinter, but more on the longer side. I do the 400 mainly. But this year I'm going to try to mix in a little bit of the 100, 200 as well as 4x4. And what brought me to track was just growing up. My dad was a track and field athlete. And so I was just kind of not engaged, but more influenced by him, just so football and track and field, and just kind of fell in line with what he's done before. So
nice. Yeah, I come from a track and field family as well, grew up doing track. So it's pretty exciting to see that stuff. So as a student athlete at the College of Idaho, how has that shaped your experience on what you expected college track to be like?
Well, being on the team, it's definitely shaped my expectations over time because, going from a senior in high school, competing at the higher level in high school, performing within the top 10 of the state, and then coming to college, and those expectations are immediately thrown out the window because you're no longer treated as a big dog or one of the top ones anymore. You're kind of just thrown in with everybody who's chasing goals and hitting, times you would never think were realistic at all. But my time being here, I've kind of seen myself grow over the years, and I'm excited to see what we continue to do about this season.
Yeah, I kind of, on that same thing, the over the time thing, I think is super important to mention with how you grow in the sport, because you come to the College of Idaho and it's obviously you're a student first. That is the expectation. We don't necessarily have practices carved into our class time. It's class and then practice. And so I think it kind of brings a whole different level of stress in that aspect. And so you do grow over time. One of the things our coach says often is speed grows like a tree. And I think that can be applied to track in general because it's a pure fitness sport. And so, it can take up to your senior year to truly be fit and enjoy the sport and actually compete at a higher level. Because like Jonah said, most of our kids, we have a lot of small town kids who'll come and they are the top dogs in state, and you come and you're not that fast anymore because you're at the college level. And so the overtime and just the patience of the sport, I think, is what makes it so great. But yeah, you grow over time in the sport to love it. But it is definitely stressful the first few years as a student athlete.
Oh yeah, most certainly. I think that can be applied to all the sports here. Is you go from being the big dog in high school, and then you come to college, reality kicks in, you're back at the bottom of the totem pole, stuff like that. But I think it's pretty cool you get to see that at all levels of sports at the collegiate level. But for right now, you guys have been here for the past 4 years. What has been your favorite moment or accomplishment so far?
I would say biggest accomplishment so far has just been being able to create so many relationships throughout the teammates and coaching, which I for sure is a little unexpected to hear because you want to hear about achievements or performing that goal. But for me, I'm really just proud of all of the wonderful people I've met so far, and I will continue to grow with, and hopefully have lifelong relationship after college. But time will tell with that. But one I'm really happy with is this year, especially being a team captain. I've just been able to kind of welcome the new freshmen with open arms and be, the person that I wish I would have had as a freshman coming in, because the captain, at least my freshman year, weren't as welcoming. They were kind of lackadaisical in a lot of ways, but just kind of having this role, given to me, and just being able to be the one that I wish I had as a freshman.
That's so funny because we should have talked about our answers before we came on the podcast, because I was going to say very similar things. The best thing about track has been you have to learn that track owes you nothing. And track is it's a really pure sport. Either you're fast or you're not. And that's just kind of how it is. Either you jump far or you don't. And so track owes you nothing, and it's very harsh and it's very honest. And so you have to love track because you love competing. And I don't know, maybe you can say the same thing, General. I haven't had a year that I'm like totally proud of yet, where I've accomplished the things I want to accomplish, because I'm sure most student athletes, struggle with this, with the injury and burnout and things like that. But I can truly say, like, this team this year is very special, and the relationships we have and the team culture we have. And that's something I'm incredibly proud of, because since we were freshmen, we've always talked about, like, we need to have a better team culture. Like, we need to be tighter, boys and girls together. And the captains this year have worked very, very hard. And similarly to Jonah, I came in once again during COVID year. And I got hurt that year. So I didn't even really have the chance to bond with older people on the team. And so to me, it's very, very important that these young kids have good role models to look up to. It's funny I say young kids, but they're actually adults. But
They're only 4 years young.
yeah, they're really not that young of kids. But it's important that they have someone that they can rely on, because school is stressful, life is stressful. And so I think I'm just very, very proud of the team culture that's been developed this year. And I think with our coaches' help, they've done a great job with recruiting some great people too. And yeah, onward and upward.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I'm really happy to hear that you guys are coming closer as a team, and you guys are leading by example. I certainly have felt that way, sometimes during football and stuff like that. But to see that in other sports where you guys be able to come together so closely, that's really cool to see across campus and stuff. I'm really glad you guys are taking that initiative as captains to make the team culture better and stuff like that. So to go along with that, you guys already touched on it, but with your team culture, how do your coaches and teammates support each other?
I think there's a lot of ways that we support each other. Track is a very, very individual sport. And so it can be very lonely out there sometimes. And like I said, track's very harsh, very honest. Like, if you don't hit your times, it's blatantly obvious. If you get your butt kicked in a race, like, it's blatantly obvious. And so the support system is so, so important in track. And like, even though we're not out there with the ball, passing the ball back and forth like a team would, like, the emotional support that comes from like the sprints group or your distance group is imperative to surviving the track season. And I think that our team this year does a very, very good job of communicating and checking in on people. We both have our Snapchat groups, which are blowing up all the time. I'm sure the boys is, but the girls is all the time. And I personally like to check in with the younger with the younger teammates often. And I think our coaches, Ben, he's our sprints coach. We work more so with Ben. He does a very, very good job of really emphasizing like the mental health, nutrition, water, things like that, to make sure that we're ready to go. And then he is such a good like listening ear. Ben is so good at listening and validating. And that's just been like that. You can see it from the top down, right? The trickle effect. And I think people are becoming really good listeners on our team. And the validation, I think, is huge as well.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I'm sure I kind of hit all the points I was going to say, but it's just, I want to emphasize the feeling that we have. So I can go out and race, and if I don't do well, I know everybody else on my team is just going to have my back regardless of how I do. Especially if it's a bad race, I know people are going to be there, to have like pick me up or, encourage me to focus on the next race. Or if I do good, like everyone's hooting and hollering and just like screaming, giving each other like praise and hugs and stuff. And I just knowing that I have, 100 plus people like on my side behind me, like on my back, throughout the meets and stuff. Like, it's just that support system that we have built up to this point, and it's progressively getting stronger as we continue to, progress through the season. And, before we know, at a conference, we're going to be like last year, I had experienced a conference for the first time. Everybody's just screaming for each other, and it's just like electrifying. And so I'm just excited to see how we continue to, grow close as a team and, just continue supporting each other.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, like you stated earlier, like track athletes, it's an individual sport. Sometimes you guys like racing against each other. Sometimes you race against your teammates. So how does that dynamic work? You're lined up on your blocks, and then the person next to you is someone you've been training with all season long. How do you like lock in mentally? During that moment, that person's your opponent, but at the same time, your teammate. How does that work?
I think very honest conversations, because something I struggled with a lot as a freshman was competing against people, especially the older kids on the team, because oftentimes, people can get petty if you lose in practice, and we're constantly competing with each other in practice. And so I think I've had some honest conversations with like the freshmen, the sophomores on the team, that I want you to do your best and I truly want the best for you, but I'm not here to lose. Like, and I want you to have the same mentality. Like, we step up to the line, you know, you should want to kick my butt. Like, and I respect that. And I hope that you respect me for, you know, wanting the same thing. But I think ultimately, like, when it comes down to competing, if we're competing with each other and also against everybody else, like, that's going to be the best outcome, and you can't back down. And ultimately, we all have to be at our fastest to win conference. So you got to have a winning mentality. And if that means you beat, you know, your teammate, then hopefully they have a bit of an edge to try and beat you on the next race, and you just build off of each other.
Right, absolutely. Like Charlotte said, it's unfortunate sometimes because you do get into a different mindset. Sometimes it's easy to just be like, oh, wait, we're not teammates anymore. We're actually competing against each other now. But for me, have this mentality that it's still my teammate. But like Charlotte said, we compete against each other all the time. So it's like, oh, this is just like practice.
That's fine.
And so it's like we're having a practice race, but in front of, you know, a crowd this time instead of just running with teammates around. But it's important to definitely distinguish or make it known to each other that there are going to be those times where you do life against each other. And, you know, win or lose, we're still teammates at the end of the day. And to not let it, you know, you get in the way of, you know, relationships, because like Charlotte said, there's sometimes can be pitifulness, especially if you lose a race and you're expected not to. But just having that solid understanding that we're all a team, and sometimes races like that are going to happen, and it's just something not to be taken too harshly, because like we said, track is very harsh, and sometimes either you're fast or you're not, but you'll continue to push each other nonetheless.
I think bouncing off that just a little bit more, I think something else this team does really well is I think we celebrate each other's wins. We went to meet in December, and we've never done that before. It was so early. And I had a very good 60 race. I ran very, very well. I know a few other girls I ran against my teammates, and they didn't run as well, but they still came up and they gave me hugs and they congratulated me. And I do the same thing for them in practice. And if they have a really good rep in practice where they might catch me, I'm going to say, that was a good rep. You look strong. And so I think when you celebrate your teammates' wins, ultimately, like, even if you compete and you're disappointed with how you did at the end of the day, you're just happy for people. And that's huge.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, like, I think that speaks volumes to your guys' team dynamics about how mature you guys can be about, you know, results at the end of the race. I think that's pretty cool. So take us through a training week for a College of Idaho sprinter. So like a Sunday through Friday, or like what do you do to lead up to meet at the end of the week?
So typically starting with Sundays, we'll be recovering from the meet. So Sundays is usually just off. Mondays, we kind of switched it up now. Mondays have been typically our harder days. So we have speed endurance days.
High volume.
And it's very intense. So we're running for a very long time, but a very high intensity. And, you know, like a lot of recovery time just to make sure the reps are quality. And they're not practices that are meant to be taken lightly. And after that, we have weights in the evening at 6:30. Weights, I love our weight program. We have our throws coach, Brian Terry. He comes up with our weight stuff when it's honestly pretty great stuff, especially from getting started in the fall to now. Just seeing the progress and just development of all of the athletes on the track team has just been incredible. And then Tuesdays vary as well. Previously, they've been like swimming practices, so we meet in the swimming pool and just do like training in the water. But this year we haven't had much opportunity doing that, and so it's been more of like a on your own kind of thing. You know, get X amount of like time running outside or like a core workout. And Wednesday is kind of like Monday, but it's more high intensity but low volume. So we're just running really fast usually, and then weights as well in the evenings. And then Thursday to Friday, usually preparing to travel, and then Friday, Saturday, we're just competing very adventurous.
Yeah, it's everything Jonah said. Usually start off really high volume at the beginning of the week, and we taper down a little bit towards the end. And I'd also like to just say, like, our weights program, Brian Terry does a fabulous job. It's really fun to see girls who have never lifted weights before, like a lot of my sprint girls who have never lifted weights before come in, and they've, you know, they're actually able to put up like 115 pounds power clean now. And like, they can only get the bar up at the beginning of the year, you know, and it's really fun to see, and it translates to the track, and you can tell. So yeah, that's our training week, and I think it's been great this year. I've loved the changes they've made. And I think it's preparing us well for the season.
Nice. So with the training going on and like competitions and then like the season going on, how do you balance the student athlete life? How do you balance training? How do you balance your personal life? How do you balance school life? How does that work for a track athlete?
Typically, everyone has their own agenda and kind of routines that help them really get through it all. For me personally, I'm not much of a social person, so I just like my academics first, and staying on top of that, we're student athletes, as they say, so the academics come first. So making sure that all my schoolwork and homework is done before I really focus back on athletics and stuff. Socially, I usually just hang around with like the team. So regardless of practice, I'm going to see somebody and have to interact with somebody socially. So, and I'm not trying to say that I don't enjoy being social. It's just more like my track team makes it so I want to be more social just because I just love being with them. But I know for sure coaches make it mandatory for the incoming freshmen to have a certain amount of time in the library, making sure that, especially for the fall semester, the first semester of college, that their grades and everything is up to par with what we're expected to have on the track team. And depending on how they perform in the fall semester, either they're completely done with having to go to the library for a certain amount of time, or they're still kept on a list and making sure they're still getting their hours in the library, make sure their study is up, just because our coaches have high expectations academically as well as athletically, but they really want to emphasize the academic part of it.
Yeah, that definitely, I think, for me personally, compartmentalization, it's a hard skill to learn when you're young, but it's very, very useful. Learning like right now, study time. All right, now it's practice time. And I think also I'm a little bit more like Jonah. I get a lot of my socialization at practice. And so then it's easy for me to just focus on my academics. But yeah, compartmentalization is huge. I think also track does have a bit of an advantage as far as balancing all those things, because we don't need to watch like hours of football film, because times don't lie. You just look at the time, where you need to improve. And in football or basketball or any other team sport, like it's much more important to, I wouldn't say more important, but there's more to look at, I guess. It's easier to study a full game of football, and then all I got to watch is like 12 seconds of a race. And I'm like, all right, like I know what I need to improve on now. And so we don't have to, in that way, we don't necessarily have to, practice is 2 to 4 hours long if we have weights. You might add another 2 hours on, and that's really all we have to dedicate out of our day. And so I think that has been huge for me personally, because we do have a lot of our day to get everything else done because we don't have those sorts of meetings.
Nice. So that's pretty cool. So what are like the goals for the rest of the season, personally and team-wise?
Team-wise, we want to beat Eastern Oregon at that conference, and they have a great team. They have a great program. Honestly, they've gotten so good like the past few years. I mean, they beat BC, University of British Columbia, and they're, they got a lot of kids, and they're good. They compete at national level. And so EOU is great, and we want to beat them. And well, we obviously always want to beat them. Yotes versus Mountaineers. But that would be, I think our team goal right now is to win conference and beat EOU. And we have a lot of respect for them and what they do, but that just makes the win even that much better, to beat a good team. And we want to get as many people as we can to nationals and try to get a trophy there. We haven't gotten a lot of sprinters to nationals in the past, and I think this year that's going to change. And then personally, I have a lot of numbers that I want to hit, and I'll spare you the details because I can talk about numbers for hours. But there's some fast times that I'd like to run this year. And I'd like to qualify personally for nationals. And I'd also like to help get as many people on my team to nationals as I can. So those are some of my goals, and ultimately finish with a strong team culture so that, these are the people that I want to have relationships for the rest of my life. And so got to stay strong through the team culture because it is a long season, very long season.
Like Charlotte said, team-wise, definitely want to try to win conference. The conference championship would be awesome. Also, I think as a team, just continuing to build what we have going already. Just this team dynamic that we're just, completely dynamic, explosive. Just continue to keep having that growth throughout this season. And, once conference does roll around, we're just electrifying, for each other and motivating. Personally, like Charlotte said, I have times I do want to hit and hopefully get to nationals for sure, but it all just going to depend on, continuing to stay with the training on top of it, nutrition, everything like that, sleep. But at the end of the day, if I can get to a meet and perform well, I'll be happy with the season.
So can you guys talk to me about the process of how you qualify for nationals?
Yes, yeah, it's not as, in a way it's cut and dry, and in a way it's not as cut and dry as it is team sports and like a tournament. You have the whole year to hit either an A mark or a B mark. The A mark is obviously the faster national mark. The B mark is a little bit slower, but you have to hit certain times within the season to qualify for the national meet. And you can do that all the way up through conference. So really it's just purely based on times. It's not necessarily about a team winning a meet. That's where it's very individual. It's very much the time you hit throughout the season. So either an A or a B mark, and that applies for relays as well, and jumps, A mark, B mark.
After every indoor outdoor season, they look back at how many individuals managed to hit the mark. And like, for example, last year a lot of individuals hit the mark for the open 400. So there's a lot of people competing, and so what they do this year, they completely bumped up that indoor and outdoor 400 mark up faster, so they can try to get less people to hit them, just because last season there's just so many people competing in the 400. So like Charlotte said, there's a certain amount of time you have to hit, and if you hit it, you're good to go. But like Charlotte said, that's when it gets more individualized. But I'm not sure how exactly the math that goes behind it, but they usually just they look at how many people have hit it and kind of gauge whether that's a good time or if they need to get faster. But unfortunately for us, it's
not a lot faster. It got a lot faster in indoor and outdoor. And I think also it's worth explaining, as a team, you can take as many A mark athletes as you want to a national meet, but there's only a certain amount of B mark kids you can take. And so that also kind of limits the number that way. And I think they try to keep it to like 24 kids sort of thing. Try to keep it to like 4 heats of people, just so you don't have tons and tons of prelims and semifinals. Because as we talked about before, you go to a junior high meet where everybody's running the 100, can take like a full hour to get through that race. And so I think it's in distance you can have more kids because you can run a lot of people on the track at the same time. But for sprints, it's gotten really competitive because they're cutting the time down a little bit.
Dang. Yes, that's pretty cool. I mean, like, that's some pretty interesting stuff. Last question. What's the one advice you would give to like a high school senior that's looking to run in college track and field?
A piece of advice that I would give is just understand there is a jump from competition level, and not to be too shocked once the full expectations of being a collegiate athlete hits you. Not to be discouraged, but continue working hard and just have a really good faith in yourself and your abilities, because if you're running fast, you're doing good, especially as a senior in high school. Understand that the coaches see something in you, and believe in them and believe in yourself the most.
I think I would give the advice that you need to fall in love with competing if you want to be able to make it through college track, because like Jonas said, it's an aggressive jump. From like, you might go from winning state championships to not even qualifying for conference, and that can be very, very discouraging as a freshman, and a lot of people quit because of it. There's a lot of freshmen who won't make it through a full year because they're like, well, I'm not competing well. And like I said before, speed grows like a tree, and you're probably going to deal with injuries and like the law of overload. Like, you're overloading your body, and you're not. Fitness is years and years of work to get really, really fit. And so you're probably not going to see results until your junior or senior year of college. And so you need to love the competing part of it, because that's what's going to keep you around, is that adrenaline, that love to just improve a little bit each race. And if you fall in love with that part of track, then you're really going to enjoy your track experience.
Nice. That's some great advice. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on this podcast and talking about track and field. I got to learn so much from you guys today, so thank you so much. And thank you for the viewers back home. Join us next time.